Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Josh. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. It is promptly 1 p.m. Eastern Time here on Tuesday. We're going to go ahead and get started. Before we get started on our topic today, just a few technical things. We're here till 20 minutes after 1. I will do my best to try to wrap things up at 20 minutes after the hour. Albeit we do have a very complex topic today, kind of detailed, but I'll try to. It might go a little long. Hopefully I'll try to be able to get everything in, though, in time. We are recording today's webinar event, as we always do. We'll be putting that out on the Support Center page here within the next 24 to 48 hours for you to review. So basically what that means is if you get pulled away or sidetracked or you've seen what you came to see, you can always revisit the webinar later. Please use the File menu and choose Exit Leave Webinar. Thank you so much in advance for attending. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those, and we'll see what we can't do to get them answered. If I don't get to the questions during the event, then of course I'll be happy to stick around afterwards and see what I can't do to get questions answered at that point. Some questions may have to be put off to a support call. If it's something unique or special to your particular data, then it's going to require that you contact support either via email or telephone and speak with the Church Windows support technician. We need more information. It's not because I don't want to answer it. I simply can't. Okay. Today's webinar topic is taken from our P101 workbook, pages 9 through 18. So if you already have the Payroll workbooks, 101, go ahead and turn to page 9. That's what I'm using as the printed material for today's webinar event. You can, of course, go right to the Church Windows website to our workbooks page and purchase the workbooks from our website. Certainly we'd encourage you to do that. These webinar events do try to follow along with the workbooks whenever or wherever possible. It tries to help kind of create a through line for folks to be able to kind of understand and get a better handle on how the software works when they can actually see it and do it and read about it all at the same time and see it in the format. We're here today to talk about employees and independent contractors, adding employees, adding independent contractors in through Church Windows Payroll. Okay, this is just one of the steps of the payroll setup during the steps for setting up Church Windows Payroll, but of course you may always add new employees and contractors into payroll at any time throughout the year. It's not like a one-time deal where you can only enter them one time and you can't add any more later without reinstalling it. You may always add new folks into payroll, either employees or contractors, at any time. Okay. So when we click here under Data Setup, we see here in the menu we have two options: Employee File, Independent Contractor File. They are two separate, essentially, databases within payroll. They have different functions. They do different things. Independent contractors, of course, will receive a 1099 at year's end. Employees would receive a W-2. We just like to remind folks that independent contractors can be, of course, paid directly through Church Windows Accounting, and they can receive 1099 NEC 1099s there. In payroll, we can only produce a 1099 NEC now. We cannot produce a 1099 miscellaneous any longer. So if you enter an employee or a contractor in payroll, they're only going to be able to receive an NEC non-employee compensation 1099 at year's end. If you do want a miscellaneous 1099, you'll want to enter and pay those contractors through accounting. Okay, so let's go into the independent contractor file. So as we see here, we've got Joe Greenthumb in here. He's our lone independent contractor that we've got. If we want to add any contractor, we want to go right up here to the upper right and click on our Add button right up here. Hopefully everybody can see my poorly drawn highlighted arrow here. So let's draw some focus there. Let's get rid of that. And if we click on Add, it opens up the Add Independent Contractor. And we're just going to go ahead and key in a contractor name. I'm going to just put in John Doe here. And down here, now notice DBA, doing business as. You can have a different name in here other than the name of the actual person. So if we do John Doe, Inc., say, or, Enterprises or something. So you can have different information showing here, enter here. Here we would enter the address, city, state, zip. tax ID number, which in many cases is going to be their Social Security number. We can have unique pay labels set up for contractors that otherwise we may not be able to set up for our employees. So, like we have for Joe Green Thumb here, so it does require that I enter a pay label. So what am I going to enter here? So we're just going to do miscellaneous. So we'll just do there, and we can type in a pay rate. Again, this can always be changed. We can back up federal withholding for contractors or state withholding if we wish, but it's not required. Then when I got that, we're going to click OK. I've now got John Doe. I can come in here. I can complete the rest of his information. I've got his pay label and his pay rate entered. Again, it can be entered at any time. Okay? It is assigning a 1099 miscellaneous ID 13 to him down here, and I will want to make sure I get that tax ID information entered, even if it's a social at some point. Okay? So again, all of these tabs open up down here at the bottom, so I can do my backup federal withholding and state withholding. I do have a totals tab that'll show me how much was paid for the contractor, how much was withheld for state and federal, and it will break it down by quarter as well. Okay? And it'll show me dates that the contractor was paid. Okay? So that's how easy it is to add contractors into Church Windows Payroll, is simply come into the contractor file, click the add button, add them, complete the tabs, set up the pay labels for them, and then you can add them there, and they can, of course, link into our accounting module as well. We're not going to get into that today, however. Let me see if there's something here. Yeah, so at the bottom of page 9 on our workbook, contractors are going to want to be entered and paid in payroll, and you want to issue a 1099 for them when they've received a compensation or been paid more than $600 or more during a respective tax year, and they will receive, in this case, and we do get to get this workbook updated, it'll be the 1099 NEC that they'll receive from this point forward. That was added into payroll in 2021 due to government changes in the government requirements for that. Okay. All right. So page 9, 10 talk about adding and setting up those contractors. We're going to move up to page 11 and now talk about setting up our employees. So once we're done with our contractors, we're going to simply click OK through that. And then when we want to set up our employees, we go back to data setup and we choose employee file. So right here, we click on our employee file. We've got a list of employees in our database here right now, and very similar to our contractor file setup. When we want to add a new employee, we simply click the add button in the upper right corner, and it allows me to choose a department code. We're going to say we're adding a new music person. Again, one of the very first and foremost important things we like to talk about in Church Windows Payroll is this box right here called Minister. We'll see it back here in the background next to our department code here. Let me see if I can drag that out of the way here and show you what I mean. So if I click here and I drag, yeah, there we go. So if I click here, notice, let me get rid of my drawing. So right here, onto the right of the department code, I've got the Minister box there as well. So if I neglect to change it or check that box when I'm adding the employee name, address, Social Security number, etc., I can always just check the box right here on to the right of the department file. And I'm talking about right here, folks, right there. So if I don't check it when adding it, I can always check it later, okay? So again, once I've added an employee, and I'm not going to add somebody new here because I've got one here called test employee that I've already entered. So right here, it assigns an automatic ID number to them. I can choose to enter the software doesn't require a department code be entered, but if you choose to pay your employees by selecting specific departments, it certainly could help you to choose and assign them to a specific department code, okay? And again, you can always add more department codes at the department's code file later on, or if you wish. Again, you want to make sure you've got their full address information in city, state, and zip code for tax purposes. Definitely want to make sure you get their Social Security in there. Of course, for any new employee, you'll want to make sure that you get a completed and signed W-4 from those employees, from new employees. That should include all of that information, including their Social Security number. I can say with complete certainty that if a Social Security number is not entered for the employee in the employee file, it will not allow you to produce a W-2 for them from Church Windows Payroll, okay? So very important that you do make sure to get their Social Security number and get that populated here in order to be able to produce a W-2 for them, okay? So then, Once we've gotten, the name, address, city, state, zip code, other information entered here, then we begin to steer our focus down here to the bottom right to these various tabs down here. This is really where the setup of the employee file occurs, okay? So let me get rid of that drawing there, that highlighter. So on our General 1 tab, which is always the first one that opens up automatically, we're on page 12 now, folks, is first of all the pay type. Are they an hourly employee or are they salaried? When a employee is not working or employed by the church anymore and working, you'll want to come in and terminate those employees. You can delete them, I think, a first full year after the final pay date from the software, but if they're no longer being paid, you'll want to come in here and terminate them so they don't show up in your active employees to pay. But you have to choose either hourly or salaried. So let's say our new employee, musician, is an hourly employee, and then below that our pay period or frequency that they'll be paid. So you would choose either weekly, biweekly, monthly, semi-monthly, or daily miscellaneous, basically a free-for-all under daily miscellaneous. We're going to say that they're going to be paid semi-monthly. And down here, I can enter a default number of hours. But if their employees are, if they're an employee and they don't work a set number of hours, you could just key in a particular, say, pay rate. So we're going to say they make $14 an hour, and I could leave the hours worked blank. Okay, I can always key that in as I'm calculating the pay. But if they do work a fixed number of hours per pay period, certainly we encourage you to enter those under your hours worked as well as the pay rate. We do have the pay labels additional and overtime. Those are typically left as 0. If the employee does earn accumulated vacation or sick time with each paycheck that they're paid, then you, of course, would key that into the accumulating hours per pay period at the bottom of our General 1 tab. Okay. I'm a big fan of wanting to click apply pretty frequently through these screens, just simply because I want it to set my work. Even though I may not be ready to move out of the screen yet, by clicking apply, it just saves it. So if for some reason, payroll closes down or shuts down or something, it's preserved my work. It's going to save that, whether I've clicked OK through it or not. Okay. So once I've gone through this tab, I'm going to go ahead and click apply. Then I'm going to move over to my General 2 tab, where it now shows alternate address information, if applicable. It's not required. Miscellaneous employee information, such as, birth date, job description or position, date hired, terminated, last raise amount, last review, and next review. Not required information, but certainly could be helpful for you in order of for tracking information about your employees as needed. Further down the General 2 tab, we have our contact information. So if there's, emergency contact information for employees, you want to complete that, you would put that in here. And finally, at the bottom of our General 2 tab, if you're choosing to use the direct deposit function that Church Windows Payroll offers, this is where you would enter the direct deposit information. So if, say, my test employee is going to be paid electronically, I would check use direct deposit. I would get the complete EFT authorization form with their account and routing number information, and I would complete that information here. At the bottom of 13, it does talk about payroll and setting up and using direct deposit in Church Windows Payroll. We don't have a lot of time to talk about that today. We do have other videos and documents and information in Payroll on setting up direct deposit. So I just would point it out to you that it is, direct deposit Payroll is capable using Church Windows Payroll, and to, spend some time looking at that information if you're interested in setting that up and using that, okay? I'm not going to say anything more about that. We've only got about 5 or 6 minutes left here, folks. Got a few more pages worth of information to get through here, okay? So again, based on any information that I've entered, I'm not going to use direct deposit. I don't have his account information. So I'm going to uncheck that. Then we're going to click apply, and we're going to move to our federal tab. So here on our federal tab is where we have, some really important information that based on their W-4 information that they've completed. If they're a new employee, you're going to want to make sure that they give you a completed 2020 W-4 form. It is new. It's the first W-4 form in quite some time. It does have things a little bit different on that. So basically, per that W-4 information, you would enter either single, married, or head of household, all again taken from the W-4. It would, you'd check the use 2020 W-4, use tax tables. It requires that. And then depending on what's entered on the W4 for 2020, you would populate all of these respective boxes or amounts from that form. And that talks about that. The other thing we'd like to point out is that based on recent tax table changes, we've seen folks using this extra withholding a lot. The tax tables have changed a fair amount here over the course of the last couple of years. Sometimes folks aren't having federal income tax withheld based on what the software perceives as annualized, not enough annualized income to withhold taxes. So you may want to talk to your employees about using this extra withholding. So if I check that, I can come down here and enter an amount that they specify they'd like me to withhold. Okay. Minister's SE tax is a box that's available for self-employment tax for pastors, but only available when a person is checked as a minister. If the employee has a retirement plan, they need to notate in box 13, this is where that box would be checked. Okay? But again, I would simply enter the appropriate information per the W4 and enter the appropriate information here for that. Okay? Again, clicking apply. Then we're going to move to our state tab. Again, we want to make sure that we're choosing the appropriate withholding state. So we're in Ohio. We're going to choose that. There is a single withholding status for the state of Ohio. Again, there's a use tax tables, and I can choose to enter a specific amount or percent automatically to be withheld above and beyond what tax tables may or may not be withholding. And, of course, I would enter exemptions. Just want to point out, folks, that the new 2020 W4 doesn't have exemptions as we traditionally know them to be. That has been one of the big changes in between 2020 and 2019 and 2020. Okay, so just be aware of that there have been some changes on that. So again, after making my selections, I'm going to click apply. Then I would move to my local tab. I would choose if local taxes are applicable and you have them, this is where you would choose them. It's not where we set them up. It's simply where we would select them, and it's automatically based on a percent of either a school district tax or a local flat rate tax, and you can do an additional amount or percent. Finally, down here at the bottom, we've got our deductions and our allowances tabs. Deductions, of course, would be things like pension, insurance withholding, dependent care, anything that basically is deducted from an employee's pay that's not considered taxes. Typically, again, voluntary deductions, like I said, insurance, flex spending plans, pension contributions, retirement contributions, what have you. Okay, and again, you would enter an amount or a percent to the right. So if we say we're going to do 403B pension, we're going to say the employee is specifying $30 per paycheck, click apply. And I do have a year-to-date total that I can have there. Same thing when we go to allowances, though typically allowances are going to be only applicable for pastors. For ministers, for things like housing allowances, things like that, reimbursables, any monies that are paid to an employee above and beyond regular base pay. Okay, and again, it would be as simple as clicking in here and choosing the appropriate allowance and entering the amount. Again, with the year-to-date totals option showing accumulating totals down at the bottom down here. And finally, we've got our totals tab down here, which basically shows what an employee has been paid both for the year and broken down by quarter, including any of their tax withholdings as needed or as applicable. Okay. We're not going to get into any more detail, but that's how simple it is to enter and add both our contractors and our employees.